Alright, so now that we've worked with the pick, being able to hold it, keeping the fingers cupped so that they're out of the way, knowing how to put the elbow on the instrument, moving from the elbow, okay, strumming and playing one note at a time, getting used to where the other strings are and resting against them so that we're not pulling away from the instrument. Now we're going to work on being able to play individual notes with our fingers on this side, okay? Now this area is called the fretboard, okay? And we have the strings running across, and these metal pieces in the instrument are called frets. Now the fingers go in between the frets, so we're really playing in the fret space. But we would still say, for instance, we're going to start on fret 5. Even though it's fret space 5, we're just going to usually say fret 5. And that's where we're going to start. So we're going to take the index finger, okay, and we're going to put it on string 6, and we're going to push this string until it touches one of these frets, this one right here, fret number 5. Now a word about how the finger should move and the shape that it should be in, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to have the finger in this shape here, and we want to understand that using the finger is actually the opposite way in which we usually use the fingers. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to imagine that this finger is the string. And we're going to place this finger, the fretting finger, against the string, and we're going to extend this finger, just like that, pushing the string against the fretboard and against the fret, making a new sound, okay? Now the reason I say that our motion here is the opposite of what we usually do, let's imagine that we're going to pick something up, let's say a cup or a broom, whatever, and we grasp that item and we lift. So when we're doing something with the hand, we're pulling the fingers in like this. And when we stop doing something, when we want to set down the glass or set down the broom or whatever we're doing, then we release by doing that. Now with guitar, what we're actually going to do is we're going to extend the finger, okay, when we play. So it's kind of like the release mechanism, all right, that sort of direction. Whereas if we pulled it in, what would happen is that we would end up pulling our string down. And pulling our strings would change the pitch. For instance, if I play this and I pull the string, you hear the pitch change. Okay? Now that could be musical. We can learn how to do that later. But for now, we want to hear just the natural pitch that arrives at each fret space. Okay? And so this is the exercise we're going to start with. Now I'm going to get a little bit closer here so we can see the frets a little bit better. Change my angle there. And what we're going to do is we want to understand that we want to be very close to the fret right here. We don't want to be over here. Now when we do that, what will happen is it will get a bit of a funny sound. Okay? That's called fret buzz. All right? And if we move closer, I'll use the same pressure. You'll have to trust me on that. You get a nice clean note. Okay? Now I could take this and add more pressure and work really, really hard and get a good sound. But then I would end up with a gargantuan dent in my finger like that. Yeah, that's no fun. That feels terrible. Okay. So that's why we want to be near the fret. So we're starting on fret 5, okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And most instruments have dots marking the fret spaces. Now, many instruments have one on fret 3, and then fret 5, fret 7, and fret 9. The double dot is 12, in case you're wondering. And there's a reason it has a double dot. We'll get into that later. Some instruments, however, don't have a dot on fret number 5, or 3, excuse me. They have it on fret 5. So that's another reason I like to start this exercise here. One of the other reasons, having to do with how we use our bodies and our arms and so on to play guitar, is that usually with fret 5, the arm, starting with the shoulder, moving to the ends of the fingers, is in line. Okay? If I move over here, you see how my angle changes? Okay, right through here. This has to turn out like that. So I would have to bring the elbow out. Okay, and that's often uncomfortable for people in the beginning in the shoulder area. So if I play in position 5, it lets my arm be in a very natural position. I just lift it just like that. Okay? So we're going to start with the index on fret number 5. And with the pick, we're going to have one downstroke, just like this, and then we're going to have one upstroke, just like that. Now, in the same way that we were using the pick before and resting on the strings that were surrounding whatever string we were playing, we want to play through string 6 and rest on the top of string 5. And when we come up, we'll just float above string 6. Then we move to the middle finger note here, and we want to release the index note there. We will have one downstroke here and one upstroke here. Notice how great the note sounds. If you get any of these sounds, okay, it's usually a position of the finger, and you would need to move a little closer to the fret. Okay? So now we move to the ring finger note on fret number 7, one downstroke and one upstroke, and then the pinky note on fret 8. Now let's have a word about the pinky note. The pinky is an awkward finger because it is not very big compared to the other fingers, and it's at the end of the hand, and so it doesn't get a lot of work or exercise. So it's a little clumsy. What we want to know about the pinky is we would really like it to be in a line here. Okay, you see how when my fingers are on, they're kind of in a line here? But what happens to a lot of people is that the pinky will lay over like that. Let me turn here, let's see. We'll turn a little bit that way. So I want the pinky to stand up this way, and sometimes we'll have it lay over like that. Okay, we don't want that really. We're going to have it stand up, and sometimes you have to move the hand either up the neck or down the neck to make it in position. Okay, so it will sit there like that in a nice shape. If you're too far away here, you'll end up reaching. You see how the finger has gone flat? Okay, we don't want it flat. We want it nice and round. All the knuckles nice and round there. So you'll have to open up the hand and let it be in position to support that. And that's how we get a nice clean note out of the pinky. So we will continue playing through strings 5, and string 4. Again, keeping in mind that I want all my knuckles round and my finger on the tip. And then again, we want the fingers to push. Okay, we want them to move this way and press the string. We don't want to pull on the string like we're gripping something. Okay, so it's a pushing. Moving on to string 3, remembering that the pick now is surrounded by strings, so the downstroke rests on string 2 and the upstroke rests on string 4. And then string 2, and string 1. There. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go in the other direction. Now let's talk about directions for a moment. When we're playing this direction, you hear that the notes are getting higher in pitch. So we want to think of that as going up, or ascending, like ascending the stairs. And then when we go this direction, all the pitches are going down or descending. Okay? So when we're descending, the pick is going to start with a downstroke, and go through all of these. Now if you've been using your pick correctly, you should be resting on the underside of string 2 after the upstroke of string 1 on this note here. Okay? And because of that, when I go to the pinky note on string 2 to continue my descending line, I'm going to start with an upstroke because my pick is already sitting there and I don't want to waste any energy. Guitarists are lazy. Always remember that. So we're going to start with an upstroke followed by a downstroke because we're still playing each note 2 times. And that's so we can get used to using both directions. We want to practice them equally, and this is how we do it. Now once we've finished string 2, we're going to be underneath of string 2 because we played a downstroke last. But we're still going to start string 3 with an up because of where I'm coming from. I'm coming from below string 3. So I'm already headed in that direction, so I'm going to use that direction first to cross through the string, followed by a down, and then I continue the line up, down, up, down, up, down, moving to string 4, and there we go. That's how we get used to using the fingers one at a time. And the reason we do that is, again, because of gripping and how we usually use the fingers. We usually use them in a group so that they don't really learn how to move independently. And we really need to be able to do that so that we can play melody lines later. All right, we'll practice that and we'll move on to the next section.